Well, a very busy weekend for your Detroit Tigers on and off the field has left us with honestly maybe more questions than answers. Coming out of the weekend, we'll talk about all of that and more all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Monday, March 17th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen. Every single day, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB, all one word, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off for your first year. Happy Monday, everyone. Hope you all had a fantastic weekend. You know, I got to keep everyone on their toes with the pause in between the end of that and including YouTube. So we got to throw in some quick ones to make the long pauses, worth it and more meaningful, because that's really what we strive for here on Locked On Tigers. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. We have a lot to go over, which is also part of the reason. So we got to get right to it. We have roster cuts to talk about. We have injury updates that will shape the opening day roster. We have conversations surrounding the opening day roster. We have Torkelson apparently getting reps in right field. We have the spring breakout game, and then just the performances to look out for from over the weekend. So we'll start off with cuts made from the roster. The Detroit Tigers, at the time of this recording, which is Sunday evening after the spring breakout game, have 41 players in Major League camp. So they are almost below that 40-man roster kind of threshold, which means that the cuts are going to start getting more and more difficult, and you're going to see bigger and bigger names attached to some of these notifications and these press releases. Jordan Balazovic, Brendan White, Dietrich Enns, Matt Gage, Andrew Navigado, Bly Madris, Akil Baddoo, and Brian Servin, all part of the weekend opening day roster cuts. No surprises there, certainly. Brendan White, a guy who was added to the 40-man, 2 winters ago. And unfortunately, just injury problems have kind of stalled his development. So I'm hoping to just get a fully healthy season from him. I think Dietrich Enns looked really solid this spring, so he could be a guy that hopefully sticks around in Toledo and can be one of those depth arms that we've talked so much about. Andrew Navigado has had a fantastic spring and had a fantastic year last year. And a lot of people ask me about Andrew Navigado. He went from kind of an under the radar guy to somebody that a lot of people have their eye on. This organization is not lost on them how productive he has been. I think there's just a logjam ahead of him, at the major league level. But it really wouldn't shock me if at some point this year this dude got an opportunity at the major league level, if injuries or lack of performances, etc., happen around the infield. Bly Madris, I'm sure we'll see at some point this season, just like last year. Akil Baddoo, similar conversation. He needs to stay healthy on top of that, and then Servin has been just kind of a solid, and Balazovic as well. I forgot to mention him there in the second time around. I think the stuff kind of plays there. Matt Gage, same thing. So we'll see what happens. No surprises there. The information we got that is impactful over the weekend was some injury updates. First off, Wenceel Perez does, in fact, play baseball for the Detroit Tigers over the weekend. The last 2 times the Tigers said he was going to play in a certain game, he just didn't. And that was very confusing and kind of worrisome. So he did, in fact, play this weekend, and he played center field this weekend on top of that. The reason why he played center field is because it was announced over the weekend that Parker Meadows would not be ready in time for opening day. And I want to cry a river. heartbreaking stuff. And like, it doesn't sound like it's a career altering thing or that he's going to be out for too terribly long, but there's just a lot of question marks surrounding this is like a weird niche, like injury that nobody is too familiar with. And there just seems to be a lot of questions surrounding it. But the big thing that the Tigers and that the doctors that have talked about it keep kind of reiterating is that once it's healed and that nerve, wakes up or whatever, I'm not a doctor, obviously, that there's no like long lasting repercussions. It's just about getting it back to 100%. We just don't know how long that's going to be. So hopefully it's sooner rather than later. Ultimately, he is not going to be ready for opening day, which means him and Vierling both will miss opening day. So who's going to play center field? We talked about at the end of last week, the Tigers filling that 40th spot that was open in the 40-man roster, not with Jahmai Jones. So they still could very easily probably find somebody on the 40-man roster to DFA or straight up cut. Especially when we get to opening day, there's going to have to be some tough decisions there anyways. And if they want to send somebody down that's out of minor league options, then like that's something they'll have to do at that point as is. So like it's certainly not impossible to still add Jahmai Jones, but Wenceel Perez back, presumably healthy and getting reps in center field. I think that there is a contingency plan for center field early on in the season, and it wouldn't shock me if it was some combination of Riley Green, Wenceel Perez, Zach McKinstry, even and some of those other utility players instead of finding a 40-man spot for Jahmai Jones, whose numbers have gone down a little bit. They obviously were never going to stay at 1,200 OPS level or whatnot. But I don't think that it's out of the question for Jones either. And I think that obviously goes without saying as the spring progresses, that picture will get clearer and clearer. But that's the interesting thing, too, is like Wenceel Perez is a switch hitter. And we've talked about this throughout the winter. He's a switch hitter. So in theory, you have the platoon advantage no matter what. But with him, he hasn't proven that yet. And like I love Perez, and he was a huge reason that the Tigers didn't completely fall apart in the middle of the summer last year with all the injuries they had. He's a dog. I love him dearly. But he is a switch hitter that didn't hit lefties last year. His numbers against left-handed pitching were terrible a season ago, and they were in the minor leagues as well. They weren't as bad, obviously, but like that's a reoccurring theme over the last couple of years across, AAA and the majors. So it's not just like, oh, maybe it's a fluke thing. And Jahmai Jones is a righty that hits lefties better than he hits righties. So like, I mean, heck, man, there might be a route for both of them to make the roster even still. That would mean that there's almost no chance that Malloy and Torque make the roster. There's so much mental gymnastics and puzzle putting togetherness that has to happen still for this opening day roster. So we will see how the next, week and a half play out. But time's ticking, baby. Gleyber Torres also scratched from the game on Sunday with a quad injury. Hopefully that's nothing serious, because honestly, that's like the last thing that this team needs. So we'll keep an eye on that. Let's talk about some of the notable performances from the spring training games over the weekend. And obviously, we're going to talk all about the report that Torkelson is going to get some reps in right field. We'll do all of that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. If you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, as I keep telling y'all, I love the no-shell variety, okay? There's some pistachio truthers out there, some OGs that don't like that take. Well, to me, it's just the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk, I'm on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, they are always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell, if you are one of those people, then you just really want that satisfying crunch while you are cracking open your pistachios. The in-shell options are a classic favorite as well. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Such a bar. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We, of course, will be back tomorrow as we keep our off-season train rolling. We will get back to player previews at some point. So just been a really busy last 5 or 6 episodes, so we haven't had time, but we have plenty of time until spring training, and the number of players that we have left to preview is getting lower and lower, obviously. Today, talking about all of the happenings on and off the field from the weekend. As far as player performances go, I really want to highlight Colt Keith, who had a couple of hits, including a double over the weekend. He is now hitting, at the time of this recording, over 300 in spring training. And on top of that, has one of the highest hard hit rates among baseball in spring training so far. And so that's a guy that got up to a little bit of a slower start, and I came on here and was like, he looks very similar to last year. I still think there's a long way to go until we're seeing peak Colt Keith offensively that I thought he was going to turn into when he got promoted, because there's still a whole nother level of kind of confidence and swagger that he had down in the minor leagues that we haven't seen yet. That being said, there's been a great improvement in his offensive approach and defense too. Early in spring, he had a couple of errors over at first base. That seems to have died down a little bit. So seems to be getting a little bit more comfortable, and I'm still hoping for a really big year from Colt Keith. But wanted to point that out. Those are two things that I think are very important to note with Colt Keith's spring training. On the flip side of the coin, Jace Young continues to struggle, had another rough weekend. There was a report by a couple of the beat writers that Jace Young came into camp over the weekend and was trying to tweak his, swing and bat path and mechanics a little bit. I think when Veerling went down, the whole fan base, myself very much included, kind of just assumed that it was a foregone conclusion that then Jace Young was going to make the opening day roster, because who else are you going to put there? This team is not afraid to roll out Andy Ibanez, Zach McKinstry combo over there at third base to start off the year. And Jace Young needs to hit in order to prevent that from being the case. This team would do it in a heartbeat, dude. They have zero fear of rolling out that platoon to be the third base, option, I guess I'll say, to start out the season. So he really needs to get it going. The defense has been, I think, better than I expected, but it certainly isn't going to, win him any gold gloves or be super plus defense over there. But if he can be an average defender and hit like how people thought he was going to hit, then that's all they really need. He was always an offensive first profile when he was drafted, even at Texas Tech and coming up through the minors. So we will see. We will see what happens. We will see how that develops. I would imagine that decision, if he doesn't make the team, he'll be a part of the last round of cuts. And I'm still not saying he's not going to make the team. There's still obviously a very clear path for him to do that. But I just want to remind people, when you look at his spring numbers and you see them down there, OPS in the 420s or 30s or whatever, he is not just going to be handed this spot either. And a couple of our beat writers wrote great articles about that over the last week or so as well. Kerry Carpenter and Riley Green both looked really solid at the plate. Both had a few hits over the weekend. Spencer Torkelson with a couple of solid offensive performances yet again as his spring numbers stay very, very high. Brennan Hanafy out of the bullpen continues to just impress the heck out of me. And that's a guy that I personally, if my last name was Harris instead of Bentley, I would have a really hard time not bringing him north. I really would. He has looked that good to me. Dylan Dingler with an absolute nuke in this weekend. I said in this ball game, but then meant over the weekend, but then it was just one ball game. Whatever. Hit a moonshot I think it was Friday's game, Friday or Saturday. And that's good. I mean, his spring numbers obviously improve a lot with that. And honestly, like I kind of want to get away from just like talking about spring numbers, period. I've mentioned that with like everybody so far. I really just kind of want to get away from that. Spring numbers do not mean enough for me to be referencing them with every single player in my opinion. But it's going to be very important for the Tigers to get offensive production from catcher this year, because last year, after Carson Kelly left, they got next to none. So they're going to need not only Jake Rogers, but obviously also Dingler to hit way better than he did a year ago. And then I want to give credit to Cater Montero, man. It's a guy that, if I had to guess right now, I would say doesn't make the roster. Doesn't make the major league roster out of camp and starts off in AAA, but the stuff it just continues to look better and better and improve. And I just give him all the credit in the world. He's a perfect player to kind of drive home the point that like opening day roster does not mean nearly as much as I think a lot of the fan base hypes it up to mean. And that's not to say that it's not important. Obviously it is. But like Cater Montero, even if he doesn't make the major league roster out of camp, is going to pitch plenty of innings for the Detroit Tigers this year. Just something to keep in mind there. Let's talk about the big report from the weekend, which is that Spencer Torkelson is going to get some reps in right field. I have a lot of thoughts on this, and the one that I have to keep reminding myself of and reminding the people that I have this conversation with. So we're going to start and end with this same sentence. Okay. We're going to sandwich this whole conversation in between two sentences. This is exactly what spring training is for. Okay. Remember that. We're going to talk a lot about it now, but remember that. Don't let that sentence slip out of your brain. And then I'll reiterate that at the end. I have zero faith that this works out. Absolutely none. And that's not like a knock against Torkelson as a player. That's just like, I never thought Miguel Cabrera was going to play right field either, but he was still winning MVPs. Like that's not like a criticism or like, wow, like he sucks because he can't play right field. Like that's not what any of this means. A lot of first basemen in the history of baseball and active right now first basemen wouldn't be very good corner outfielders. Okay, so that I have no faith that this works out, but like that's okay. That's not what anybody thought was on the table until 2 days ago. If I'm wrong, and if he's not going to win a Gold Glove out there. If he's just fine, like even if he's below average, right? If he's serviceable, if he's playable out there, he can have like slightly under zero, slightly negative defensive metrics. And I think this team would gladly take that in a heartbeat still, right? I have no clue what kind of arm he's working with currently. I haven't seen this dude throw off of first base since he was in, double A, triple A maybe. So like, we'll see. If I am wrong and he is even, again, remotely serviceable out there, then that could be a way to make it easier for Torkelson and Malloy to coexist on a roster together, because you give them a little bit of positional versatility within that. In the same breath, it also could mean like Torkelson is kind of has what's the track? An inside line. Is that the figure of speech? Inside track. He's on the inside, whatever. It also could mean that Torkelson is a little bit more likely to make the opening day roster than Malloy right now. And they're going, hey, with Malloy, we would get first base and maybe some below average defense in corner outfield. Let's see if maybe we can get that out of Torque too, because he's going to make the roster over Malloy. There's so many different angles in this. This is ultimately a long shot. And if it works out, that's only a good thing. That's only a positive thing. The one thing I have to take out of this is that I do think this means that the Tigers are the likelihood of Torkelson to make the opening day roster increases with this announcement. Not because of the announcement, but to me, and this is my interpretation, I could be totally wrong. I haven't spoken to anybody in the front office. I don't know anything. A lot of people would agree with that last part. My point is, I think that you are only trying this out if you're looking around and going, wow, the offense looks better. We have more faith in the offense. How many different ways can we get him into the lineup card? That's all. And ultimately, no matter what your opinion is, this is what spring training is for. Okay, let's talk about some spring breakout baseball. We'll do that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at Monarch Money. If you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did my money all go between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, and more, it's really easy to lose track, and that is where Monarch Money comes in, and it is just for you. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, spending, all in one place. So you just stop managing your money and you can start building wealth. When I started using Monarch Money, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery, and now I budget smarter and save much more. It's also all in one, just very convenient. Instead of juggling multiple apps, I use Monarch Money to check my finances, track my spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is also smoother than ever before. You can track your shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without any stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off of your first year. All right, everybody, welcome back. Your third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, let's talk about some spring breakout baseball. Your Detroit Tigers prospects defeated the Atlanta Braves prospects by a score of 6-3 on Sunday afternoon. Awesome event, awesome game, so cool to watch. It was on MLB Network or MLB TV. I cannot continue to reiterate how much of a massive home run this event is for Major League Baseball, and that they need to do everything in their power to not only continue doing it, but to grow it and grow it even more. This is exactly what the game of baseball needed. There is a disconnect between more casual fans and more serious fans when it comes to draft and minor league baseball. I don't even like using the term serious. Like, you be a fan however you want to be a fan. More casual fans and more invested, sure, fans. And I think that when talking about like the draft and the minor leagues, that's where there is kind of that disconnect sometimes, because it takes players that are drafted years and years to be even crack a major league roster, nonetheless be an impact player there. And so to have an event like this where, free for everybody, like you can go again on, I mean, you have to, have MLB Network available to be watched or whatnot, but like to have that be nationally televised and to have all of these teams just put together, hey, these are all of our top prospects that you can expect over the next couple of years, and these are the guys that we just drafted, etc. It is just so awesome and so good for the growth and the game of baseball. So I don't give the props to Major League Baseball's marketing department very often. I think they have really screwed up and fumbled a lot of things, especially over the last 5 years. But this is one where I have to give credit where credit is due. This just continues to be such a great event and so great for the growth of the game of baseball. Max Clark goes 1 for 2 with a sac fly and a fantastic play in center field. Frangerber Montilla, also great tag on that play. Guy for Atlanta just rounded second base. It was an aggressive round, but like was just rounding second base. And Clark crow hopped, made it look like he was going to throw to third, and instead kind of did like a no look, Matt Stafford type of thing. I'm not saying Patrick Mahomes, Matt Stafford type of thing, and went behind the runner, got him on a back pick, if you will, quote unquote, from center field, trying to get back to second base. So really awesome play there. He's got a cannon. He's fast. Was wreaking havoc kind of on the bases as well. Drove in a run with the sac fly, like I said. Just looked really good all-around ball game. Kevin McGonigal, some really good at-bats. Had a line drive to left field as well. Thyron Lorenzo, 1 for 3 in this ball game. Awesome. There's some stuff mechanically that I think he needs to sharpen up just to be quicker to the ball, but as a whole, it's really fun to watch him out there. How You Lee goes 1 for 4 with a walk. Jose Briseño goes 1 for 2 with 2 walks and looks pretty athletic over there at first base. I haven't seen too many innings from him at first still because of the injury last year and whatnot. So seeing him look as sharp as he did over there, like he really is. He's huge and jacked, but like really is an athletic body over there. I was really impressed with how he looked defensively. And then Roberto Campos, the famous Roberto Campos, 1 for 3 with a walk. I want to talk pitching in a second, but offensively, I really want to highlight Bryce Rayner, who was the Tigers' first-round pick in the most recent draft, straight out of high school, shortstop. We covered him a lot over the summer during draft season. This dude balled out in this game. Like if there was I don't think there is, but if there was like a team MVP award or an MVP of the game award, I think there's an argument that he won it for the Detroit Tigers. He went 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs, crushed a ball to left field that almost got out. It was almost he's a lefty, almost an opposite field home run. I think he looked really athletic and tall and long over at shortstop as well. I was unbelievably impressed with Bryce Rayner in this game, and that's the first real look we've really had at him. Because again, he just got drafted in the middle of last year. That's really the first legitimate look a lot of people have had on him. And if that is a sign of things to come, man, this kid's going to be great. And he's already a top 100 prospect, already somebody that a lot of people are really excited about. But man, like this is already such a deep and loaded farm system, and adding a player that looked like, and it's one game, I'm not trying to blow it out of proportion and say, he's the next A-Rod or anything, but like he looked really solid among a sea of, top prospects in this game. He really stood out kind of almost above everybody. So just want to give him his credit there. Pitching wise, the 2 players that I really want to highlight are Jake Miller and Jaden Ham. Jake Miller started the game for the Tigers. Not as big of a name as Ham is, who's now a top 10 prospect in the organization, but I thought was stellar, man. Like he would be the other guy that I would give, most impressive performance to. 2 innings pitched, 2 hits, 1 earned run, no walks, 3 strikeouts. The thing that impressed me the most was I'm going to call it a 2-seam fastball. I don't know if that's actually, the fingering that he has, if it's more of a sinker, maybe even something else, or it's just a 4-seam with a lot of run, I guess. But whatever fastball he was offering, that was 96, 97 miles an hour with the amount of tail that it had, was unbelievably impressive. He got a lot of swing and miss on it, and it led to those 3 strikeouts in 2 innings. I was super, super impressed with him there. And then Ham is somebody that has really just kind of flown up. Prospect boards over the last 2 years, was not really on anybody's radar a couple of years ago, and now is, almost consensus top 10 prospect in the organization. And, once Job loses prospect status, he's going to be one of, if not the best pitching prospect in the organization. So to see him pitch was really cool. 2 innings, 1 hit, 1 strikeout. The thing that's most fascinating to me about him is his mechanics, because he really kind of gets low when he plants and when he pushes off, I should say, from the mound. He really gets low, and the ball gets so low to the ground. And it's so fascinating because then when he comes back up, it makes the release point pretty unique. And I think that that's a big reason for his success. Would love to see him add some velocity still, but I think that that's something that he'll continue to work on as the stuff gets better. Good changeup he offered in this outing as well. I think that's all I got. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We, of course, will be back tomorrow, continuing to recap more spring baseball. We do have another off day Thursday of this week, so you can expect Friday's show to be probably our last, maybe second to last, but a more of a big picture roster projection type of episode. Until then, hopefully we can get back into the swing of doing some player previews and talking about the spring training games that happen. Jam-packed show. Pretty happy with what we did time-wise. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. Real quick, before you head out, make Locked On Fantasy Baseball your second listen here. Obviously, you're making Locked On Tigers or Locked On Red Wings your first listen. Check out Dominic Martino and Matthew Onay. MLB Fantasy Draft season is here. I have 2 drafts in the next 7 days. I will be tuning into their show so I can be the most informed fan possible and set myself up for a league win. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I will catch y'all tomorrow, baby. Go Tigers.